Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is the 17th episode of English Podcast with Asif. I would like to thank you first for appreciating the previous episode. I am happy that you found it helpful and you expressed your feedback in the comments. Please, dear listeners, keep writing in the comments because that tells me to keep making more. Dear friends and dear students, in today's episode, we are going to discuss some finest quotes on reading by some famous personalities of the world, writers, philosophers, revolutionaries, etc. What they say about reading, how they look at reading. So it's going to be a motivating and interesting episode. I'm really excited. I'm sure that you too will enjoy this episode. So wherever you are listening to this podcast, I welcome you wholeheartedly for joining in today. The quotes I'm going to read and give some little explanation of them are already in the description. You can have a look at them and side by side you can listen to me. So the first quote I would like to quote is the first revelation of the Holy Quran. It says, "Read in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher, who created." Quran chapter 96 verse 1. The first command to the Prophet, because it is the first revelation, that is to read. And read in the name of your Lord. This verse exhorts all of us to read, and at the same time it tells us the purpose of reading, to know your Lord and get closer to Him. Dear listeners, what else could be more motivating than the words from your Lord Almighty? Wherever you are right now, if you don't read, start reading if you're able to. If you aren't able to read, then learn reading, because this is ordered to you right now. The quote number 2 is from my favorite writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky, a Russian master of writing. He says, "Reading books and having them bound represent two enormously different stages of development." That means if you read and you take care of your book, you bind it, it shows that you are at the different stage of development. The quote goes on, "First, people gradually get used to reading over centuries naturally, but they don't take care of their books and toss them around. Having books bound signifies respect for the book." So two things have to be in you: reading books and respecting the book. It goes on, it indicates that people not only love to read, but they view it an important occupation. Nowhere in Russia has that stage been reached. Europe has been binding its books for some time. So you have got to read books. That shows you're developed. And furthermore, if you want to be completely developed, you have got to take care of your books. I can really relate to this quote. Initially, when I read, I did not care what paper quality is this. I did not care about its binding cover. But now I'm very conscious about it. When I now order the book, I make sure that it's well bound, the page is good, and I mostly prefer hard bound books, because your books should look beautiful, because they teach you. They should look presentable. They should look beautiful. You should feel that you are reading something great. Okay, so thank you, Fyodor Dostoevsky, for this beautiful quote. Now, quote number 3 is from other favorite writer, Jane Austen, a female writer, novelist, a great novelist. She says, "I declare, after all, there is no enjoyment like reading. How much sooner one tires of anything than of a book. When I have a house of my own, I shall be miserable if I have not an excellent library. So, two things Jane Austen tells us here. Number one, that there is no greater enjoyment like reading. And number two is to have your own library. You have a house of your own and you don't have a library. This is miserable. So this can be understood only by those who read, who know the enjoyment of reading, who know how to read well. Because there are many readers who read but they don't enjoy it. That means there is something wrong with the reading. And it can be, as I said, it can be only understood by the readers. If somebody is telling you that sugar is sweet, sugar is sweet, sugar is sweet, you won't understand what the sweetness is until you taste it. In the same way, if somebody is telling you reading is enjoyable, it gives you a lot of pleasure, it makes you sort of oblivion of the rest of the world, then you have to experience it yourself. It may take time to attain that ecstasy from reading, but you have to be patient, because reading doesn't reveal its treasures to the one who is impatient. This is my quote now. Okay, thank you so much, Jane Austen. Now, I'm going to read another quote from William Faulkner, an American novelist. He says, "Read, read, read. Read everything, trash, classics, good and bad, and see how they do it. Just like a carpenter who works as an apprentice and studies the master. Read, you will absorb it. Then write. If it is good, you will find out. If it's not, throw it out of the window." Wow, what a quote. It's actually beautiful advice for those who want to write. What they have to do, they have to read. They have to read voraciously. He repeats it 3 times. Read, 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 and read everything. Everything means trash, good, bad, classic. You will come to know how they do it, how they write. Just like the carpenter gives a beautiful analogy. A carpenter who looks at his master, who learns carpentry, looks at his master and sees how he does it. In the same way, you have to look at these masters of writing and see how they do it. If it is bad, okay, you will come to know what bad writing is. If it is good, you will come to know what good writing is. And then what you have to do, the next thing is then write. If it is good, you will find out. If it is not, throw it out of the window. Another quote I'm reminded of is of Stephen King, a sci-fi writer. He says, if you don't have time for reading, you don't have time for writing. That means tools for writing. Simple as that. So if you have to be a writer, if you want to write, if you want to express yourself through writing, you must read. Another quote is from Mark Twain, another great novelist. He says, "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read." The man who does not read has no advantage over the one who cannot read. That means if you can read and do not read, you are not better than the one who cannot read at all, who is illiterate. So if you can read, you must read. That's what Mark Twain suggests you. Now, beautiful, a funny quote, you will love it, by Roald Dahl, a British novelist, a short story writer. He's a well-known writer. He says, "So please, oh please, we beg, we pray, go throw your TV set away, and in its place you can install a lovely bookshelf on the wall." I won't suggest you to do that. If you can, do that for sure. But at least have a library in your house. Accumulate books. They are treasure, the greatest wealth. Another quote, similar quote, I wanted to share that also. Groucho Marx is the one who says it. He says, I find television very educating. How? Because every time somebody turns on the set, I go into the other room and read a book. That's how educating television is, because it stimulates me to leave it there and go and read something that is worthwhile. Next quote is from Benjamin Franklin, founding fathers of United States, a polymath. He is master of many disciplines, philosopher, politician, scientist, humorist, writer. He says, the person who deserves most pity is a lonesome one on a rainy day who doesn't know how to read. The person who deserves most pity, I mean the person you can feel bad about, you must be sympathetic to the one who is lonely on a rainy day and who is not able to read. The greatest enjoyment, really, I feel it's really ecstatic experience that it's raining outside, you're inside, maybe under a blanket, having a cup of coffee beside you, and you have a book in your hands, you're reading. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ecstasy it would be. So there are many quotes on reading, and I have accumulated many. I think that I should share the rest of them in other episode. If you are liking it, please let me know in the comment section that I should make another episode on quotes on reading. Okay, so if you are liking it, do let me know. So let me end this with the quote from Malcolm X, another quote from Malcolm X. He says, my alma mater was books. Listeners, alma mater is actually a place, a university, college, where you get the degree from. Okay, where you get the degree from. He says, my alma mater was books. That means the degree I got from is actually the books. So that means, you can be a self-made without being banking upon the university or college or any institution. You can just do things on your own if you have a library, if you have books. He says, my alma mater was books, a good library. I could spend the rest of my life reading, just satisfying my curiosity. If you really have that curiosity, that thirst, that hunger to know the truth of this world, then you must read. Reading is a satisfying activity, an enjoyable activity. That's what we learn from all these quotes. Reading educates you, reading entertains you, reading enlightens you. Reading has innumerable number of benefits, as we learned in the very first quote from the Holy Quran. Read in the name of thy Lord, the Cherisher, who created. The one who created is asking you to read. So what other greater source of motivation you would find to become a reader? It is the high time to teach yourself to read. We are going to share more quotes where you will see that how some people taught themselves to read and how important they consider for someone who wants to do something to be able to read. So thank you so much for being nice audience. I appreciate you for listening to this podcast till end. So see you next time. Till then, may God be with you.